Hi, and welcome to the Personal Side of Business podcast, where every business has a story. Today, I'm excited to welcome Shylia Hernandez to the show. She is a San Diego-based realtor with the Lewis team at Real Broker, a second-generation real estate agent, and a proud mom of two. Shyla knows the San Diego market inside and out, and she brings a down-to-earth, no-pressure approach to helping people buy and sell with confidence. Welcome, Shyla.
Thank you so much, Jet. I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks. Pleasure having you. So let's start with your story. How did you get into real estate?
Okay. Yeah. So I've been in the business for about 19 years. I've been licensed for 16. I am a second generation realtor. So my both parents are in the real estate industry. My mom's got 35 years in the business, and my dad has 23 years in the business. And they have owned and operated a real estate team called the Lewis team here for many, many years. So I kind of just grew up in the industry. I don't know if we can say child labor on here, but at about 14 or 15, I was printing flyers, creating and printing flyers for open houses. I was delivering the flyers for the open houses. I was doing data entry. I was putting listings on the MLS. My mom was um, getting my friends to come over and stuff envelopes for her geographical farm.
So you were free admin.
We were free admin. Yeah. I say it was a job, but being paid in pizza, I don't know how lucrative that
Right.
was. Maybe at the time.
Did you ever see yourself getting to something else, or you were sold on getting into real estate?
That's a really good question. No. I went to college and I was like, I'm going to do everything in my power to not be in real estate. And so I went to school to be a child psychologist.
Wow.
Yep. I went to school to college in 2005. I left for college. I went to Orange County and studied child psychology my first year, and then was offered this great opportunity to do a study abroad program. So I went to Brazil and got to live in the communities in Brazil, different communities, and study the different communities in Brazil. It's really cool. And when I got back, it was like 2007, 2008, and it was like a bomb had gone off in the real estate industry, and everybody was like running around with chickens with their heads cut off. And I decided, I'm like, I'm going to take a break from school, come back home. And my mom was like, great, I've got a job offer for you. You want to negotiate short sales? I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. No, not fun. No, no, no. Nobody even knew what a short sale was at the time. Like we were working with banks and I was calling banks and trying to determine like, okay, what is a short sale? This person can't make their payment and you need them to make their payment. And so there's a short on the sale and they can't sell it for what it's worth. And, how do we put this together? And so that was like my very first, big girl job in real estate was negotiating short sales with banks that aren't even here anymore, like Countrywide. And that's what I did for like the first year of being back and being in real estate. And then we had between 50 to 75 short sales at a time that we were holding. And then we got REO accounts. So we got, I think it was like 2 or 3 REO accounts with Bank of America. And it was just, they were just being flooded with these listings that they now owned because people foreclosed, couldn't make their payments. And we were taking those over. We were doing any repairs and kind of prepping them to come back onto the market for sale. So I worked with asset managers and kind of managed that as well. And then in 2009, they decided, okay, in order to do that, we're going to require that you're licensed. Now you have to be licensed. So I'm like, went and got my license, easy peasy. And I came back and my mom's like, you want to be a buyer's agent? I'm like, heck yeah, get me out of here. It was just hard. People were losing their homes
Right.
and, banks didn't want to help at the time because they didn't care. They just wanted their money at that time. So I was very excited to be a buyer's agent and get to deal with people, who are buying their biggest financial asset. So
Do you think at that time learning to do from short sale actually gave you more knowledge into now going into the sort of the easy part of
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Number one, it taught me how to deal with all different types of people, which is really obviously very important in dealing with sales. It taught me how to problem solve. which is crucial in this business. You have to be an expert problem solving. Um, Risk management was a big one that I learned. And then just kind of like the things that you know you don't realize that like the ins and outs of contracts, presenting a contract, doing negotiations, all of that definitely was learning in my journey of short sale negotiating.
Now, when you started to get into real estate, r- actually getting your license and everything,
Mm.
was there a thought that you're like, am I making a mistake? Should I go back to what
No,
I went to school for?
no,
What?
no. Well, oh, so you mean child
Yeah.
development? No, I kind of decided. So I kind of had a terrible class. I'll be honest with you. I had a class in college that really kind of just turned me off to psychology. And I don't know if it was like the teacher or we were like learning about these tests that they did on kids and like these really like creepy things. And so I was like, I'm not feeling this. And so I kind of dropped that idea and didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point when I came back. But I was also, so when I was in Brazil, I kind of toyed with the idea of staying in Brazil. So I'm like, I really didn't know what I wanted to be when I grow up when I came back here.
Does, and does that mentorship that you've had through your parents, do you think that excelled your? Right.
100%. Yeah. And I don't know, my mom has a really, really amazing reputation. Our team has a great reputation for being um, very ethical, very honest. Pretty much, I would say 90% of the realtors, I mean, that's a big number, but a lot of realtors that I meet already know my mom, or if they don't know her personally, they know her reputation. So she's built a really, really good name for our team, and that has definitely propelled us forward. Yeah.
N- Now, when you started getting into, or really, I wouldn't say getting into because you've been doing it for so long, but when you finally put both feet in, what were some of the hardships and issues that you were dealing with, like that you didn't know before?
I would say so when I was negotiating short sales, it was a 9 to 5 position. So, you clocked in, you did your job and you clocked out, and that was like pretty much all you didn't think about it again until really the next day. In real estate, selling, it's not really like that. So it's kind of a pro and a con, but the schedule was something that I didn't realize it's a very demanding schedule, but it also has a lot of flexibility. So it's kind of like you get the best of both worlds. So I was a young mom. I've got a 16-year-old daughter who she was born in 2009, so 2008, sorry, just before I got licensed. And so I think that um, was a blessing. And it was something that, like, okay, this is amazing. I get to be there, mornings with my daughter and, ease into the day and spend extra time with her. But it was also like, okay, you're working weekends. You're working when people, when the average buyer gets off of work, that's when I clock in. That's when I'm, showing property, meeting with sellers, things like that. So I think that was kind of a tricky transition.
Did any of that while you were raising your daughter in the beginning stages of her life, were you ever like, "Oh, this maybe something else could be flexible, but this wasn't gonna say,
Wasn't even a thought in my head
you
to
like
do
you were
anything
sold.
else.
I feel like you got sold young and
I
it
got
just
sold
stayed,
young.
yeah,
Yes.
and it just stayed with you for
Yes.
years. And you're like, I don't know why, but I love real estate. I can't
Yeah.
figure it out,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. It's kind of like, yeah, you're going to boot camp, but
Yeah,
but a
yeah,
way easier boot camp.
yeah. And what are let's kind of talk to people who are looking to get into real estate.
Mhm.
What's a day on that weekday, that Saturday look like for you? When you're running around and showing homes
Yeah.
and open houses.
So weekends are probably going to be your busiest time because you are either during, if you're working with buyers and sellers, you're trying to, get everybody in. So if you're not doing an open house that day and you're just, meeting with buyers and sellers, you're scheduling them back to back. And that could be early morning if you've got early risers, which I love because I'm a morning person. So it could start 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you could just be jam packed Saturdays and Sundays. Um, I will say that doesn't happen every weekend, but there are busy times where you're just like, okay, this is what I've got to do. And you got to be flexible.
Yeah.
Have to be.
And what's the work week look like, or Monday through Friday? Are you doing a lot of more contracts, looking at
hmm
prepping for Saturday and Sunday?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of the times I'm doing a little bit more prepping for Saturday, Sunday. I'm on the phone. I'm on the phones with people. I'm networking. I'm meeting with other realtors. I've got a couple of listings right now, and actually tomorrow I'm going to be pitching them. So you're constantly um, thinking of ways or actively doing ways to market the listings that you have and or find properties for your buyers. I also do off-market properties, which takes a lot of time and effort, finding off-market properties for your clients. And so um, during the week, I'm trying to find them more properties. So
And there's people that have gotten into real estate. I'm assuming, right? Because I've met some of these people that think it was right after COVID. We were like, everything was easy. You were making money.
yes.
And now you really have to sell,
yeah.
right? Like you really have to work and then try to get, sell by. What are there certain things that you feel like over the years have you stuck to that have been working for you, or have worked for you? And it's like, if I stick true to these 3 or 5 things, they're always going to work for people getting into the business.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So it's funny that you bring that up because we were just actually, somebody had brought it up about how many open house signs were out. They were like, oh my God, there's so many open houses going on. And I made the comment like, yeah, you're not used to seeing that because we used to put a sign in the yard. And by the next
Yeah.
day, we had like 30 offers. We didn't need to do open houses, barely. We had to fight to actually do the open house if we wanted to, open it up and have showings. Where now, like you said, agents we're having to do open houses. We're going to have to go back to the basics. But to answer your question on, what has worked for me is keeping in communication with my sphere of influence and my past clients and just loving on them, just staying in front of them and, communicating with them, sending them things of value regarding their home. So I do a lot of comparative market analysis for them so that they know how much equity and what their value is, going into this, the new markets. Um, and also just kind of being an ear and an open ear for them if they need help with, a gardener, a landscaper, or whatever they need help with. I'm always there. And then staying in front of them. And those types of people that you love on and you take care of are going to continuously use you. So I would say that's number one key to sustaining my business.
Nice. And what are you looking for from week to week, month to month in the industry? Are there certain metrics that you like to pay attention to that help you uh, you know, as a broker?
Yeah. So we're always constantly, it's really important to keep an eye on so we always look a month back as far as like what's happening last month. And we always keep an eye on what pricing's doing. We're always keeping an eye on um, new listings coming on the market, but not only new listings, but how many listings have come on the market and then gone into pending or gotten an offer, and then from that pool, how many is moving into sold.
Yeah.
And that kind of gives us an indication on market time. It gives us an indication, like a pulse on, where the buyer's mindset is and so forth. I've also been kind of just on the back burner, keeping an eye on lender mediated, so bank owned and things like that. And I'll touch on that really quick. Um, Only we have like 172 lender mediated in San Diego County. That's it. There's like 172 properties in foreclosure.
I'm assuming that's pretty low.
That's very low.
Okay.
So in 2014, we had 2,000. Yes. So we're low.
What? Okay. So it's kind of curious to me. So my assumption is, if the economy was starting to go bad and people are starting to lose their jobs or having issues with money, that foreclosure would start going up.
Mhm.
So that's not happening. What do you think is a reason why it's low, but the economy is, in a sense, unstable?
Yeah, so I think that the number is low because we've had such dramatic increases in pricing that I think that anybody who, you know, I know people are losing their jobs. We've heard a couple of big industries losing their jobs. But I think that the people who have bought over the last couple of years have so much equity that they're really not being foreclosed on. It's more so like we lost our job and we're going to now have to either be renters or we're going to have to sell and downsize or we're going to have to do something. We can't stay here because we can't afford the payment. Um, but also those people, anytime if you bought before 2022, you got like a 2.3% interest rate. So, you're set up, fairly well to where that kind of helps ease into, not having to be foreclosed on. But I think that that's what's kind of keeping it low.
Okay. And to your point of what's going on in the market here, so let's kind of dive into what's happening in the San Diego market. So,
Mhm.
what are some things that you're seeing that people who are not from San Diego maybe they don't quite understand? Because we're in what you I think you said the second highest like home market.
Yes. So our median sales price right now, and this is single family homes, attached homes, which are like condos, townhomes. So this encompasses everything. But our median sales price is 900,000 right now.
Well,
Yeah, here in San Diego. So we're second highest in the United States, following Hawaii. Um, but I would say, we've got these beautiful beaches. We've got the beautiful sunshine. We're kind of one of those, places that a lot of people do want to be. On top of that, our inventory is still really low, so we are maintaining some stability in our prices. And we were kind of just chatting about it a little bit, but although we're not seeing the growth that we have seen in prior years like 2020, 2021, 2022, as far as increase in sales price, we are still seeing increases in sales price. So in 2022, in February, we saw 17.5% increase in sales price that
well,
year. That's a big jump.
yeah.
And then the year before, 2021, we saw 15%. So those are big jumps.
And is that because inventory, it's kind of going against inventory and saying, well, if you want to buy it, this is
Yeah.
bidding, you're just bidding against everyone else.
Well, yeah. So, yes, exactly. And interest rates were so low that people were able to afford
Yeah.
more. So it was like, interest rates at the time were what, 2.5 to 3%, I want to say. And people were like, okay, well, I can afford um 900,000, but appraisals and prices hadn't caught up to that yet. So that house was really only worth 800,000, and so that's what the listing agent listed it at. But you had this buyer who really wanted it and could qualify for more, and they're looking at their payment, and it's whatever it was, $5,000 for 900,000. They were jumping all over it. So I think they were, offering more, and that's how, where we got the price increases from. So
Now, what does it take for someone to get into this? Because I'm going to guess if someone heard that a home is almost $1 million, they're like, there's no way, right?
yeah.
And because people across the country are fighting to get into 350,000,
Mhm.
$400,000, because I think the median for the country is still right around there. So I'm wondering, someone were to hear this and say, "Th- I have to make three times the amount of money in order to do that." What are we talking about to get into a home right now?
So we're looking probably somewhere around, so depending on what you put down, right? And what you qualify for in interest rate. So everybody's situation is slightly different, but just roundabout, I would say you're probably looking at anywhere from uh to buy in today's median household price. I mean, I'm sorry, median sales price, 900,000. You're probably looking at about 180 to 200,000 is what you need to make as a household. So whatever that might look like,
Yeah,
husband and wife makes 100 and 100.
yeah, yeah. And what is your down payment What are we looking at for down payment?
That one's probably about yeah, 20%,
Yeah.
20%. And if you wanted to put less down, you're probably looking at maybe about 230 to 250 in income.
No. When you're having buyers look at homes like this, are you going through that conversation initially? Like, this is what it's gonna look like. Can you afford this? Can we do this? Or should we go look in a different area?
No, absolutely. 100%. Before you start your search, you should be talking to a lender. You should be sending them your documentation. You should be allowing them to pull your credit. I know
Yeah.
people don't like to hear that, but you should, because every situation is different. And because the interest rate is based on those things, it's based on your debt to income, it's based on your whole financial situation. It is important to talk to somebody and make sure and sit down and say, okay, what do we qualify for? But also, what are we comfortable with?
Yeah.
We don't, I have some people who are like, okay, I qualify for this, but I'm really only comfortable, $2,000 lower. So we really need to be looking in that. So that is a 100% very important conversation to have before we even go and look at property.
Yeah. So I guess the initial thing is to go out and make sure, figure out with a lender,
Mm-hmm.
figure out what you can do or what you can qualify for, and then start to search. Because I
Yes.
think I would guess from a lot of people watching HGTV, it's probably the opposite, right? You get excited, you start going Zillow. Zillow makes you feel like a hero. You're like,
Hmm.
I can do this. And Zillow's numbers sometimes aren't exactly correct.
Oh yeah. Oh well, yeah. So anybody listening, so Zillow auto populates. So nationwide, Zillow auto populates their insurance and then they auto populate their
Right.
taxes. So I have a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I think I qualify for this." Like, where'd you get that number from? Oh, Zillow. And then we go through and we're like, "Okay, let's re-look at your situation." And it's different because the tool on there on Zillow just automatically populates nationwide.
Yeah.
So it throws out some numbers. We're different here in San Diego.
Yeah, and I'm guessing with insurance costs that I'm gonna guess
Mhm.
that AI is not really picking up like, oh, it's probably going to cost if you're in a fire zone. It's
Right.
like,
Right.
$900 a month extra for that
Exactly.
insurance.
Yep.
Um, so, and you and I were discussing a little bit of the buyer assistance program. Could you explain that?
Yeah. So, which is really exciting, actually. So there's tons of buyers. There's different um, down payment assistance programs here in San Diego. You've got down payment assistance. There's also down payment and closing cost assistance. There's grant programs that you can qualify for. There's creative financing. There's lots of different options depending on what you're looking to do as a buyer. You've got the USDA loan, which is 100% financing in rural areas. Then you have your CalHFA. There's lots and lots of different options depending on what you're looking for. But down payment assistance is really cool because they've got guidelines that you can follow. You do have to have an approved lender, so they've got a list of approved lenders on their website. I know a couple of good ones, but they can help out on based on your income, what you qualify for. It's income and household. So, but it's a really great thing to look into, for affordability here.
And is that for first time home buyers? I'm assuming.
It's all for primary. There's different ones, but it's for owners who are going to live in their home.
Okay. And um, do you know some of the qualifications for that for like different programs?
Yeah, let me actually look up a
Yep.
couple of different ones. So there is one specific one, and I bring this one up because I've seen a couple of properties on the MLS that have it listed as deed restricted, and I get a lot of calls on those because they are priced really low. And so that's the one that I kind of wanted to just touch on. So just for example, and there's different ones that are higher income, but this one is $95,600 for a household of two. So you have to qualify that, if you're a household of two, that you can't make over that. However, there are other ones that are like 120,000. So there's lots of different options. So even if, 95 you make over that, there's lots of different options.
And is that process? I'm assuming you've helped some people. Is that process really difficult to get through?
Extra paperwork, a little bit of extra time. As long as you've got a lender who has done the programs before and knows what they're doing, easy,
Okay,
easy. Yep.
cool. What do you foresee the San Diego housing market to be in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, go ahead.
I think I hate to say it because I really don't want to say it,
Yeah.
but I think we're going to see continuous growth. I'm hoping that they're going to drop the interest rate. My fear is if they drop the interest rate, I think we're going to see even more growth. But I don't think that we're going to see that 17.5% increase like we did in 2022. But I do think that we're going to see a couple percent here and there. I also think that buyers are going to start to kind of come up a little bit in the game as far as we're coming out of a market where buyers were giving up, asking for closing costs. They were giving up contingencies. They were, paying over list price. They weren't negotiating a request for repairs because they were competing with 30 other offers. So I think, and what we have started to see is buyers have a little bit more of an upper hand. So they're, negotiating a little bit more with the sellers. They're asking for closing costs to be paid for. They're maintaining the contingency periods that they need to maintain. They're taking their time, which is not a bad thing. So we are seeing a little bit more market time um, on listings, but nothing crazy. I mean, we're seeing 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, which is pretty average before COVID.
Really? What if you were to kind of try to predict? Do you think it's going to go back down the growth to maybe like 2 to 3% per year, or you think
I
we're
would say, yeah, I would say that's probably pretty accurate. I mean, I don't think we're gonna. I mean, again, unless they do something crazy like drop interest rates, I don't know if they will be doing that. But if they do, we could see more. But if they just maintain where we're at right now, six to 6.5%, I think we'll probably see some slower growth.
I mean, and so I'm not from San Diego, and you grew up here. When you're looking at homes here, did you ever think when you were growing up that it was going to be like close to $1 million average?
No,
Yeah.
no. So I grew up all over San Diego, but I mostly grew up down in Eastlake. And I remember like you could get a house, a big house, a very nice house for like 400,000.
Yeah.
And actually, in fact, one of my very first sales was out in the woods, Eastlake Woods, which is, a really nice neighborhood. And her sales price was 450 for a single story, beautiful home. You just can't even touch a condo down there anymore.
Yeah.
So no. If I did, though, I would own several and I'd be retired now.
Now, what does that look like for the next maybe 2 generations of
Mhm.
people that are trying to get into this? Like, I don't know what the disparity of income is going to be over time, but I'm going to guess that there's going to be, if everything keeps going the way it is with the economy, we're going to have less and less jobs that are making that 150K and 200K, right? So, what are we having this what's a conversation for kids now that are like, I'm graduating from
Mhm.
college now, I'm going to have a home, but really the reality is going to start to hit them, and the money's not going to make sense against what the housing cost is in San Diego. What's your advice for someone in coming up in the world?
That's a great question. So I've got a 16-year-old and my advice, well, let me kind of backtrack a little bit because when I bought my first home, and I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but my mom gifted me money to buy
Right.
my first home.
Which I think, I part of me thinks that there has to be some sort of assistance
Right.
from the family, a friend, or
Mm-hmm.
something happens where you inherit some sort of money in
Right.
order to get in.
Yeah. And that, so I bought a condo. I won't even tell you how much it was because it makes me sad now that I didn't keep it. But I couldn't afford the down payment at the time. I was a single mom. Um, and she gifted me the down payment for that condo. And that allowed me, I held on to that for about 3 or 4 years. We lived in that. And then I decided that I wanted to put my daughter in another school, a very nice school up in a private school. And so we sold that. And when I sold it, I made a little bit of money off of it. And this was like bought my first home in 2013. So it wasn't like I bought it at like the bottom of the
Yeah.
market or, anything crazy. Um, that allowed me to buy in a nicer neighborhood. I still bought a townhome. It wasn't like I bought anything, spectacular. But it was just kind of my stepping stone. So my advice is start early if you can. Um, Start early, utilize every single down payment assistance program, utilize all of your options. Um, if your parents are willing to gift you and have the ability to gift you the money for for a condo, buy it. Even if it's a one bedroom,
Right.
do what you can. I know a lot of people, want to save for their first home and they want to buy a single family home and they want, this neighborhood and I think those are amazing goals and I don't think there's anything wrong with saving and choosing a neighborhood and that's what you set, your goal towards. But there's also a way of saving in that you're buying a condo now, letting it build equity, even if you rent it out, have your tenant pay down your balance for you and then that way you have an asset that's working behind the scenes while you're saving money. And then that way, when the time comes and you're ready to buy your house, single family home in your nice neighborhood, sell it or rent it out and be able to do that. Um, I don't know that the house that I live in today, I don't think I would have been able to save 20%.
Right.
It was that I started early and sold and kind of built it up. So,
Right. And just want to touch upon that just a little bit of the investment side of things, right? I think, um, you and I were probably, and maybe not you just because you grew up in the real estate world, but I think a lot of people, majority of people, were brought up to think buy a home, that's your home, that's the dream, right?
hmm
But I think there's multiple ways to get into that.
hmm
And even for me, I look back on one when first home I bought. I wish I had the opportunity to get a duplex, and I was like, I don't want to live in a duplex next to someone. And now looking back on it, I was like, yeah, that would have probably opened
yeah.
up more doors,
hmm
financial doors for me to be able to buy multiple properties and
hmm
grow. Because I think at the time, the one I was looking at near where I live right now was I think it was like 650 for a duplex, right? Which now they're like probably 2 million. So
Yep.
yeah, you look at that and like, oh, I could have sold that, kept in mind, get into larger doors. Um, let's talk just a tiny bit about what that looks like when you're someone that's coming into it and you're like, I just want to live in it. This is going to be my end all be our house. What do you say to them? Like, this might be an opportunity for you to, rent it out and grow. Are a lot of people open to that?
It really depends on the buyer. I'll be honest with you. There are some people who can't be convinced, and 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 they've got a certain goal in
Mhm.
mind, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm here to support your
Yeah.
goals, whatever path you want to choose. However, I always lay out all of the options, and you bring up a really really fun and exciting point about duplexes because you actually get to use part of that duplex, whatever rental income you get on one side, as qualifying income. So that can really help you, buy a
Yeah.
duplex. That could be, an avenue of buying a property, your first property, second property. Um, but it really, I'm here to give you all the information, all the options, and whatever the buyer chooses is really up to them. Whatever path they choose to go down, wherever they want to, wherever whatever their goal
Yeah.
is, we go that way. I'm just here as a support and a guide. Um, I do have people who are like unsure. They're like, well, I would really like to, look at a duplex, but I also don't like to live next to somebody. And so I really want to explore condo, but I also don't really want an HOA. So what are my options? We go look at everything.
Yeah.
So we find out what you're qualified for. And then we go and we look at the duplex. We look how that lives. We go and we look at our options for condos. We'll go explore different areas. Okay. So we're, we have to stay within this price point, but what can we get in, maybe a little bit more rural area? Are you willing to travel to Ramona? There's really
Yeah.
nice houses out in Valley Center.
Yeah.
What are your,
Yeah.
where do you work? Let's get close to there. So I'm here as a guide wherever they want to start and wherever they want to end up. I'm just kind of here to guide them and give them the best options.
Have you seen people now of the past like 6 or 7 years be more open to that, or it's always been the same? People I just want to buy a house, I want to live in it. I'm asking this just because I've I feel like a lot of people become more educated from what
Mm.
who I've spoken to, right? I just run into people, they're like, yeah, I was listening to this podcast or reading a book and something that triggered me to look at buying a home differently. Is that something that's changed over the years?
I would say with some buyers, yes, because we talk about the whole duplex thing. That wasn't really a big thing. Like when I was buying, because I also looked at buying a duplex in 2012, 2013, and it wasn't really a thing. It was
Yeah.
kind of like people didn't really want to explore that option. I say the younger generation. But I see the younger generation willing to be more creative.
Yeah.
I'm working with a buyer right now, and let me tell you, she is exploring all options. And it's nice to see because I'm like, when you want to explore all options and when you're open to it, it just broadens your horizons, right?
Yeah.
So there's more opportunity if you're willing to kind of get creative, and not just like it has to be this way in order for, because it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be that way.
Do you think in San Diego market or Southern California market, it's a little bit harder to be rigid in what you want? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean our price points are higher, and so it definitely hinders people from getting exactly every single thing that they want, um, including location, price, and size. So you're probably gonna have to sacrifice one, maybe two, to get that, or we can kind of maybe start a little bit smaller, and then work our way up to it. So.
It's awesome. All right, and close things out. Shyla, if you were to give advice to an up and coming realtor or someone who's already in it and doesn't really know their focus right now, what would you tell them?
Get a very good mentor. Do exactly what they tell you to do. Um, I talk to a lot of people who get into real estate and they're like, I'm going to make a bunch of money and it's going to be easy and I'm going to have all this free time. And let me tell you, when I first got in, I knew a guy who actually did very well, but what he was really good at was networking. So at every single, because he was a golfer, he loved to golf. So at every single golf, he was networking. He was working. That ended up being his work. So if you're not, a really, really, really good networker with your sphere of influence, you're gonna have to, do the footwork. You're going to have to do the open houses. You're going to have to do the calls. You're going to be working, for clients until you can kind of build that up. So get a really, really good mentor. And like I said, do everything they tell you to do and you'll be fine.
All right. Thank you so much, Shyla. Where can we find you?
So I am best by text 619-981-3922. Or if you want to see my cute kids and all of my fun real estate adventures, you can find me on Instagram. It's Instagram. My handle is just Shylia Hernandez.
All right. Okay, cool. Thank you, Shyla. Thank you for coming to the podcast.
All right. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.